Okay, we should be back on the live stream. Sorry about that, guys. We are going to pop in. Perfect. All right, so required languages, CSS, JavaScript, HTML. I'm going to add, I'm just going to change this to frameworks. And we're going to throw in Bootstrap here. I don't think you guys have a ton of experience with Bootstrap, but we're going to see a major flip once we put it in and why to use it. We're going to be building this in Cloud9 for collaboration. Okay, so let's talk about maybe process a little bit. Where are we going to start?
I think we should start with the backend.
Okay, and why would that be?
Because with the front end, we're kind of you have to build like the experience out, right? So and all that's going to depend on the back end.
So what I would actually advise is starting with the front end, so we have a place to test, so we have a place to make our API calls. However, I would encourage you to plan out your back end before you even start on the front end. So start thinking about what API endpoints you need. You don't necessarily need to write them all out and write the code and get the server running for them. But starting with thinking about, okay, what information needs to go to the back end, what information needs to come from the back end. Then, okay, how are we going to show that? Let's collect that information in the front end. Let's then go out, write those API endpoints, and then let's make sure it's all working in the front end. So it's kind of like design your front end. Well, figure out what information you need first, plan out the API endpoints, build out your front end. Yeah.
You can finish your thought.
Okay. Plan out the front end, build out the front end, build out your API endpoints, shove the front end and back end together, and then go ahead and test and make sure we hit all the requirements. So we're going to write that down. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in the user interface, the user needs a way to identify who they're sending the message to.
We're just going to do like a chat room. So instead of picking your user, we're just going to do a general. Yeah. So I will rename that to chat room app just so we're clear on that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to plan out API endpoints. We're going to build out our front end. We are going to build out our API endpoints. We're going to integrate API with front end, and we're going to test. Anyone think of any other steps?
Eventually, don't you have to link it to the server? Some sort of server?
That would be kind of integrating with the API with the front end. That will be that step.
I don't know if this goes with the plan out APIs and search, find, figure out which APIs you're going to need.
So we're building our own API for this. So it's not necessarily about what other APIs we're going to need. But you bring up a good point of, okay, well, we covered kind of the front end up here, but we didn't cover what we're going to build the back end in, right? So up here, we should probably put Node and Express up here. We're probably going to need maybe body parser. You guys heard of a framework called Moment? Moment helps you work with timestamps and times and formatting, all of that. So we'll throw that in there.
What about a place to save the data?
Yeah, so we're gonna save that in a text file, but in order to do that, we are going to need a package called FS, file system, which is built into Node, but we can throw that in the list.
What do you mean by
Endpoints are the roots that we created yesterday, like /add is an endpoint. So basically an endpoint is a function that you can access on your API. So every different function that is publicly accessible would be considered an endpoint.
So would that be like /send, /receive, /save?
Yes, you got it.
Do we need to have that, the app server? Have we talked about that already?
Yeah, so we're gonna run that on Cloud9.
Okay, so that is the app server.
So we could, but we can add set up server.
I was thinking, how big do you need to make the database? Like, I mean, how, in terms of memory, I don't know, maybe that's not.
Yeah, so that would play more in if we were doing a long-term database storage, so like MySQL or Mongo or any of that. For right now, we're going to keep this as what they call an ephemeral. I'm totally botching the name of that, but it just runs as long as the server is up, and as soon as you refresh it, it may lose the data, which is why we want the ability to save that conversation to a text file. So basically, at any point, you can say, hey, grab anything that's in memory and save it out to a file, and then we'll be able to access that file.
And I mean, the database don't you need to, like, I mean, tell it how many people, like,
So yes, but we're completely avoiding a database. We're just storing everything in the memory of Node. So you can make a chat application that doesn't require a database whatsoever. And that's what we're going to do in this one. But yes, those are all fair concerns of how many people can you support, how many things can it store, what's the data structure it can store, and all of that's coming next week.
I wrote down yesterday, set up dependencies and track.
Yep. So that will all be part of the server, but we can put up set up server and install packages.
so we already went, yeah, you have the packages.
And then, don't we need a local HTML file?
Yep. So we can put that as set up front end project.
You have that on there, right underneath the build up front end, right?
Yeah, so the build out is going to be the actual like coding aspect of it. The setup is just getting the HTML file set up, linking to the JavaScript file, all of that stuff.
So every time you use body parser, you have to download it again?
Every project that you
Install the
use it.
package, every project you can install it.
Yes. So you can have, you know, like where I work, we have one backend server that's thousands and thousands of lines long, and we use body parser in several different files and several different aspects of the API. So we just install it once on that project, and then we can use it as many times as we want.
Do we have a URL to send this to?
Yeah, Cloud9 will take care of a lot of that for us. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking about just like starting with a layout in HTML.
Sure. Sure. So that will kind of come in this step. The last thing I want to do in this Google Doc is let's figure out what API endpoints we need, right? So the endpoints we created yesterday, what were they?
/add.
And
Yep. And that was pretty much it, right? Maybe the index file, right? So what do we think we're going to need for this?
/send,
Yep.
receive and save
What are we saving?
the conversation, the text file.
Receive message.
So
Or,
every time we send, we want to save it.
okay,
Oh, so whatever you send. you will
okay, so then.
So you
it's
want to
saved
send the
there.
conversation.
Yep.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Does this, like, typically is that information stored on the user's like device, or is it stored in like a separate data system?
So it would typically be saved in a MySQL database or Mongo or any variation of that.
Like I'm thinking of like apps like WhatsApp and like Kik, or is that completely different?
Okay, so now you open a door into encryption. which is a hot button topic right now. There are some, so if you look at something like,
Like, does anything even exist anymore without encryption in terms of chat?
yeah, so basically the way it works is that everything is stored in a database, but everything that's stored in the database is stored encrypted. And so let's say Apple with iMessage, right? Apple can't actually read your text messages,
They just
and
know that they're there.
they just know that they're there.
Can they see like timestamps though and stuff? Do they have any data about them?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't have a like, I mean.
I personally don't care, but I'm always curious about like what information they exactly have.
Yeah, so it depends on the platform. It depends whether the information is encrypted or not. There are a lot of variations of it. Basically, in a basic chat application, let's just say we are making this in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right after we have the database set up, which we may actually revisit this and rebuild this application using a database to store these messages in. But basically what would happen is a user would send a message, it would go up to your node server, your node server would save that information into its database with your user ID and the timestamp and the message that was sent. And then it would then go ahead and send that information out to everyone else who is in the chat room, and everyone else would get that message information as well. And then what that would allow you to do is when you reopen it, you would be able to load all the messages. And when you would do that, your computer would say, hey, node, I want all the messages that were said in this chat room. Your node server would go to the database. It would retrieve the user IDs, the messages and the timestamps, and it would send that information back.
I'm just wondering, like, I mean, is it just one encryption that they do for every single, like, I mean, for all the icons, or does it generate random?
It's a random key for every iPhone. We're gonna save that though, because you got a whole week of me for authorization and encryption and middlewares and all kinds of fun stuff there.
But they can decrypt the message if they want.
Apple cannot, because they don't have the key.
Who did the encryption, like, who did?
That's what you need, like with the San Bernardino shooters. I remember that was a big deal because they needed to have their
Yeah, that's what.
key to that, to
Yeah.
their phone.
To their phone, yes.
Right, and Apple wouldn't give it to them. So
Yes.
It was like a standoff.
They didn't have it, so they were asking.
They didn't have
them
the
to-
password or
They wanted them to create
A backdoor,
Yeah.
right, so that
Correct.
they could get it,
correct,
and Apple refused.
correct. And now on the even newer iPhones, Apple couldn't create a backdoor, period. Just because there are certain device protections where if you leave your phone locked for over an hour, the USB port now just completely disables, and there's no way Apple can re-enable that. It's just like, that's it, it's
So if somebody
disabled.
steals your phone, you can shut it down.
Yes, yes,
Just like shut it off.
you can,
Okay. And they can't use it, even if they wanted to.
correct.
They can't even like unlock the phones now, right? I've seen people trying to sell iPads with dubious ownership. They just get locked completely out without the original owners.
Right, because you can only
iCloud.
try 3 times? How many times can you can only try a certain number of times.
It depends, and you can do activation locks on top of that. So if you notice your phone isn't sitting there or your iPad isn't sitting there, you can go online and do an activation lock. And then Dave Badillo, the TA from a couple weeks ago, was a genius at the Apple Store, and he would have devices that would come in and he'd be like, that's activation locked, we can't do anything. And some people would be like, I just found this iPad, like I just want to return it to the owner, and the Apple Store couldn't do anything about it. They're like, it's locked, that's it, we can't unlock it unless you find the original owner and they type in their password. And when you lock it, you can put a message on the screen like, please call this phone number or whatever it is.
That's my daughter all the time, and I don't want her anymore.
Yeah, you can lock it out and the person cannot get in. Yeah,
And then I turn it off.
Yeah, but you also, like, they can't just have a computer just trying every combination of numbers.
no, because the
It would
time
lock it out, yeah.
increases.
Yeah.
Um, Okay.
I just wanted to mention, it
Yeah.
helps me to be able to visualize
Yep.
the process. So this is like a very rudimentary user interface,
Yep.
something that I remember from a long time ago. So in this one, you have the enter message button, and then the user would enter a message here, they would hit enter.
Yep.
And then the messages would start to stack
Yep.
up in the form from, whenever someone hit the button, and
Yep.
then the message would appear here, plus the timestamp. And I guess, so in drawing this, one of my questions is, are our names going to follow our message or something else?
Yeah, so for this, what I would do is I would just add one more field. So instead of just enter message, we're gonna do another one up here that just says first name. When we get into, we can always change that down the road and make it so it's just prompted at the beginning. But for right now, we're just gonna have those two form fields.
Okay.
All right. That's very helpful, and doing a wireframe or a mock-up is something that is part of the normal app development process.
Before we go back,
Yeah.
you had about the 5G network?
Yes.
Okay.
So these are all
Yeah.
great topics that are great to talk about. But let's focus on the app development now. We can, after 8:30, we can talk about all of that to your heart's content.
I just asked about like the storage because I don't know how we're supposed to like save messages.
Yeah, so we're just gonna save them into an array on the server.
Into an array.
Oh, internet.
And we're gonna find all the pitfalls of that and save it into a file. And then in 2 weeks, if Gus doesn't do this part of the app, we'll come back to me and we'll put in the database and we'll do authorization and authentication and all of that fun stuff. So this is going to be an ongoing project. I'm not sure if Gus is going to take it over, which he's totally welcome to do, or if it's going to come back to me and we'll keep on doing it. But this isn't going to be like a one and done and off into the ether. We are going to keep going on this. Okay, so let's talk about the send endpoint for 1 second. What kind of method do you think we're going to use for that? It's going to be a get. Is it going to be a? Yeah, we can do that as a put. And what kind of data do you think we need to send when we send a message? The message text, yeah. What else? And the name. Perfect. Anything else? So timestamp we don't actually want to do. That was a trick question. That was totally a trick question. I set you up for that one. The timestamp we want, exactly right. We want to generate that not on the front end, but we want to generate that on the server. And the reason why we want to do that is because we don't want people to be able to screw with the timestamps, right? We don't want to be like, oh, we sent this message 2 hours ago. So that's why we want to generate it on the server, because the server is generally considered trusted information, right? If it comes from the server, we know it must be secure. But if it comes from the front end, we may want to be a little weary of that. Okay, the receive. What kind of endpoint do we think that's going to be?
So it's still
Yeah.
an input.
It's going to be a get. And what get do we care about? What data do we need to?
The message.
Message.
Nothing. We want to get everything, right? We want to just say, all right, go get us our messages. We're not doing different channels or conversations or threads or anything like that. So we just want to say, hey, just go receive all the messages, go get all the messages. So that's it. No data is required there. Okay. Is there anything else that you guys can think of for what we would want to plan out before we dive into the next step of setting up the front end project?
Don't you have to, we don't have to say click because it's a button. Do we have to do something like that?
We will definitely have to do that.
Okay.
That's something that we can kind of get into as we're building it out. Yeah.
Do you need one for like the room and stuff? Or is it just like, I don't know if I'm explaining that well.
What do you mean?
For like the display of all the messages?
Yeah.
So we're just going to do one page. That's one room, and you can just send messages into that one room. We can revisit this down the road and be like, oh, I want the ability to, like, we could build a Slack clone, right? Of like, oh, I want to be able to send a direct message, or I want to be able to have this channel in different rooms and all that stuff. But for right now, we're all going to be in one big room.
I mean, it's basically Messenger, we're just building Messenger or WhatsApp.
Sure. Does anyone have questions about this process? Okay, so
Add-ons that you want in HTML that will make, like, I mean, all this styling.
yeah, so we're going to use Bootstrap for our styling of that.
Okay.
So, and we did cover that here, but we're going to find that out in a second of how pretty things look in 1 second.
Do we want
So you
like a
don't need
search
CSS?
function?
We'll definitely need CSS.
You generally do the CSS last.
Learned everything else.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, like, I mean, you want it to be functional first and then.
So let's dive into Bootstrap before you get an answer to that question, and you'll see what my flow typically is. All right,
What about a search function for the?
we're going to say that for now.
We're just gonna say that, okay. Pictures like avatars.
We'll skip that for now. This is a very basic throw things out there.
Emojis?
We can support emojis because Node supports UTF-8 and B4, so we can use emojis.
How many sections you need, or a header, or no?
Let's just do a basic. I think Dana's drawing here is a good thing to emulate.
How do we save the conversation to a text file?
Well, that's a requirement, and we listed the package as a requirement, so we will get to that. There are two things that I realized that I should have covered yesterday, which was completely fine that I didn't because the time frame was fine. The two things we're going to cover today, tomorrow-ish, are writing to a file, which is one of the reasons I put that requirement in. And we're also going to use a templating engine called EJS. Some other ones you may have heard of are Pug or Jade or a couple other ones. If you haven't heard of them, that's also completely fine. But we are going to use a templating engine to start to cover how we iterate over this data. And instead of doing everything on our front end, maybe we want to do some things on the back end as well. So instead of rendering out the data and having the browser handle it, what if we render it out on our server and then have the HTML just show up in the browser instead of being dynamically added? But we'll get there. Okay. I'm going to use the same AWS link from last night. I sent that at 5:36 yesterday. And the one thing that I'm not quite sure how this is going to work, oh, I thought I deleted that. Adding. So I did leave the adding file over here in case we need it. I'm now wondering if I regret doing this. Oh, well, we're going to pretend to reinstall everything just because we have things installed from yesterday, but we're going to do it anyway just for practice. What I want to test is if we create a new file over here, called index.html. I want to see how it's in Slack if you just scroll down a little bit more. What I want to do is see if we can do a basic HTML file here.
How do you get to that page from the landing page? I mean, I'm signed in.
Do you see index.html over on the left? Sorry, I can blow this up as well. Well, I can
No,
try
have
and.
this page.
So I just clicked right on this US East 2 link.
All right, let me go back, 'cause I had already logged in, so let me just go back.
Let's see, can I? Wondering if it's, no, I want to do this collaboratively. The only thing I'm not sure of how to do is like how to actually open this. Can we preview? Well, I want to preview the file. Oh, beautiful. That's what I wanted. Okay. Is everyone in Cloud9? Is anyone stuck?
I don't either. What tab did you open?
I'm in index.html.
But for your test to show.
Oh,
Sure.
I went to preview up at the top and then preview file index.html.
Yeah, I'm good.
Everyone good? Okay. So let's clear this. So there's a little shortcut in a lot of text editors. It's another templating engine called Emmet, and it will autofill a lot of things for you. So if you do an exclamation point and HTML and tab it, you get a giant thing filled in. And we're going to do our head tag. And let's do a title tag called chat app, chat room app. And let's do a body tag. And let's do a H1 with nothing else but hello world. And we're going to save that. And if we come over here and refresh, we have our hello world.
Where are you saving? I heard you say that yesterday, but I never actually saw where you were saving.
Yeah, so over here on the left is our file structure, just like we have in Visual Studio Code.
Okay.
That's all saving in our Cloud9 environment for us. So it's not actually saving on our computer, but it would be like saving to Dropbox or Google Drive or any of those. It's like saving up on our server directly.
Okay, so you're just going up to file save. It's not just saving dynamically as you type.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm hitting Command S.
Oh, Command S, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we have our hello world. Let's make this, right? Why not? So let's do maybe a p tag, or let's do the person's name, right? So let's do maybe a div, and in that div we're going to do maybe an h5, and we're gonna do Dana's name, and maybe we'll do a span right next to that that says 6:18 p.m. and let's save it. And okay, that's kind of all right. Let's change this to a span just so it's all on the same line together, and refresh it. Okay, let's just play with this for now, right? And we'll do another div right underneath that, and we'll do a p tag, and it will say hello. And oh, don't hit the refresh, Command R. Okay, so. Oh no, that was me. That was me.
How do I get my screen to look the way yours does?
If you hit preview up at the top,
You mean the side by side?
Oh, here we go.
preview and then preview file index.html.
And then you can drag that.
Okay.
Mhm.
And now let's just take all of this, copy it and paste it, and we'll say Kate, and we'll say hello back, and we save and refresh, and looks like we're getting some messages there. So let's say, all right, we have our 2 messages, that's fine. Let's do our bottom section, right, our form field. So we'll make it a form. And we are going to say that has a label of first name. And how do we get a text field to show up? And what type? Text. And let's save that and refresh. And we have our first name. Okay. What else do we need?
You need your message.
Label, yep. And let's do a message. And how do we get a multi-line text field to show up? text area. No, text area. Am I wrong about that? Well, that's interesting. There we go. All right, and this is going to be hacky, but let's just put in a quick line break. And we can save that and refresh. And okay, we're one short of something. What else do we need in our form? Yep. And we'll say send, and we'll save and refresh, and we'll put in another line break and save. That looks beautiful. I think Jeff would be proud. I really think Jeff would really be proud of that. Okay. So we could spend a lot of time doing some HTML and CSS and laying this out properly, or we can totally cheat and use Bootstrap. Who's up for Bootstrap? Bootstrap it is. All right. So we're going to go to getbootstrap.com. And we're going to say get started. And they give us this lovely CSS to drop in. So we're going to try and copy that and go back to Zoom hating me. We're going to go back up here. And in our head tag, we're going to drop in this long link. And we're going to save and we're going to refresh. And oh my God, look at that. It already looks better. But let's clean it up a little bit more, right? You notice we're not in Times New Roman anymore. The spacing kind of automatically looks better. We're making progress. So in case you're wondering, how do I know all of these things? I'm just reading this right off the documentation, right? So if we go to layout, layout has this thing called containers. And containers say it's required for using the grid system. It's a basic layout element. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're going to take our entire body and we're going to say div class equals container. And we're going to put this down here and remember to close our div and make sure our indentation is right. And we can save and refresh. Okay, bounced it over a little bit. Now, I don't know. Now, what I just did, I clicked on that little pop-out button, and that opened it up in a new tab, so we can start seeing what it's looking like in an actual browser. I really want that to slide up like it normally does. Oh, that works too. Okay, so now that we're in here, let's see. We probably want our form to look a little better, right? So let's go to Bootstrap and let's go to components and see what components they have. So they have a whole bunch of stuff over here on the left. And let's see, they have, oh, forms. That kind of looks like what we want. So let's scroll down here and, oh, that looks kind of pretty. Let's see, do they have any other examples? Form controls, emails, example text area. Okay, that would be good. Now they have a file uploader, they have sizing, all different kinds of options, right? Read only, inputs, ranges, checkboxes, all kinds of crazy stuff. But I think that this looks pretty good, right? We could have first name in the name, and then we can have message that, and then maybe the send button down here. So let's see how they do that. They have a form, and then they have a form group. And in their form group, they have a label and the input. So we're just gonna go back to our code, and down here, we are going to do a div class equals form group. And we're gonna make sure we close that right off down here and fix our indentation. Then we're going to go back to our forms and it says label for, and it doesn't really look like there's any styling on that label that they added, but the input does have a class of form control. So let's go back to our app And on our input, we're going to add a class equal to form-control. And we're going to save and refresh. And wow, that looks better. By the way, if you're wondering what that little symbol is, that's my password manager. So just ignore that. That won't be there on yours. Okay. Rinse and repeat, right? Let's do another div class equals form group. And move that down to here. And we'll tab that over. And we will do a class of form-control. And we can save and refresh. We're looking pretty good here. Who needs CSS? All right, now our button. I don't like the way that button looks. It looks pretty standard. If only Bootstrap had buttons. Oh, would you look at that? They do. So they say add a class of button and then button primary. And if we wanted any of these other fancy colors, we could. So I'm just going to steal that class. And I'm going to come back here. And I'm going to add that to my button. And I'm going to save and refresh. We are looking good, man.
Wow.
All right. Let's see. I think we can clean up our messages a little bit. What do you guys think? All right. So what I would kind of like to do is have my timestamp over on the right-hand side. So we are going to get into the grid system. Oh, but we're not going to get into that CSS grid that's so complicated in Flexbox and all that stuff. No. We're going to take it nice and easy. We're going to use the Bootstrap Grid system. You guys are going to like this. All right. So I'm going to just get rid of this second message down here just for now. And what we're going to do is we are going to, let's take a quick look at card and see what they say the card looks like. I'm kind of thinking that having each message in its own little card would look nice. So we're going to go, they say use a card and a card body. So we are going to go back here. And we're going to say div class equals card and div class equals card body. And we're gonna grab all of this stuff and drop it in here. And I'm hoping I can, okay, cheat a little bit. What I did there is I went to edit code formatting and apply code formatting, and it just took care of all my indentation for me. And so we are going to save, we're gonna refresh and
Wait, how did you do that? The code formatting thing?
edit code formatting, apply code formatting.
That's good to know. Okay.
All right, and that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna come up here and just do a quick inline style just so we have a little padding on our whole app. Actually, I'm just gonna do it on the top. And we'll pull that in. And so now it's just pushed in a little bit. All right, that's looking good. I'd like to do a little styling there though. So let's get our timestamp over on the right here. So what we're going to do is go to our layout section. And in our layout, they cover grid. And so while eventually you will have this memorized, using the documentation is completely normal. If you go into an interview and they don't let you use the documentation, walk right out the door. This documentation is not expected, you're not expected to have this memorized, right? It's completely fine to reference this. So what they're saying here is, okay, this whole thing is consisted of a container, and there's one row with 3 columns in it. And because we don't specify any size here, the columns are going to be 3 equal widths. But if we drop down a little bit, they will show you some more examples. These all happen to be the same, but say we want one that is 50% of the screen, and we want the other 2 to automatically size in. What we can do is we can say, hey, do one column, do a col that's a width of 6, and then a col that's normal. Oh, that takes up the rest of the space. And so everything in the Bootstrap Grid system is based off of 12. You may go, well, why 12? Why not 10? Doesn't 10 make more sense? It's because you can do more splits with a 12, and you get more options with a 12-base grid system. So we're going to play around with that a little bit right now. So in order to use columns, we need a row to contain them in. So we're going to come back to our code. And in here, we are going to say div class equals row. And in here, we are going to say div class equals col. And for this column in particular, we're not going to specify any width. But for this column down here, we are going to say class equals col again, and we're going to do a width of 2. And we're going to take that and we're going to put that down there and tab that over. And let's save and run it. I like that. So let's come over here. Let's refresh it in our full width. You know, well, okay, but I don't like that there. Why is that there, right? Because this is taking up 80% of the screen roughly, and this is only taking up 20%. So instead of, well, let me ask this. How would we normally get that all the way over to the right?
Line text.
Yep, we can do a line right in our CSS, but we don't like CSS. Why do we want to write CSS? We want to cheat. If only we were using this beautiful framework that had those classes defined for us already. So we can just save text right, and when we come over here, boom, text right. Kind of liking this. All right. All right. You know, let's get a little fancy here. Maybe we can make this p tag instead. I don't think that will change too much. Let's make it maybe an h6. Let's save that. Let's refresh. Okay, maybe an h5 instead. We don't need to get too fancy here, but all right. Feeling it. What about you guys?
Works.
All right, so let's make sure we like this coming all the way down. So we're going to grab that. Nope, we're going to make sure we get all of it. So that card comes down to there. And let's save that, refresh. Maybe a little padding on top. Now there's nothing saying you can't use straight up CSS. That's okay. So let's do a margin top of maybe 15 and save. I can dig it. Can you guys dig it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's next? Okay. What's next? Okay, so let's go back to our list. Cleaned out our API endpoints. Let's make that green to check it off. And we set up our front end project. Great. Let's say we got that done. And we built out our front end. Okay, let's check that off. All right, it's 6:34. I have presented a chat application to you guys, and in under an hour, you guys have planned out your API endpoints, planned out the whole project. You've set up the front end, and you've made it look kind of pretty.
It's pretty good.
We're so productive.
Okay, so now we need to set up the server and install some packages. Okay. So we are going to close our front end for now. And how are we going to set up our server?
Node and Express.
Mm-hmm. So what's the first step in creating a backend project?
NPM init.
Beautiful. So we are going to npm init. We're going to hit enter 40 different times, and boom, we have a package.json file. Awesome. We're totally not cheating and using the one from yesterday. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. But if you'd like to follow along on your own, npm init and enter, 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 enter. All right, great. We have our npm initted, and now, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna cheat. We're gonna delete this. We're gonna delete this. We're gonna save. Okay, what's next?
You have to
Express.
enter your specs.
Mm-hmm.
Then create a new file.
So let's get our dependencies installed first.
Okay.
So in order to do that, what did we say we needed to install?
NPM.
npm is already installed for us. So what are we installing with npm?
Body parser and express.
Yep. And in order to do that, we are going to type
npm
mm-hmm,
install
mm-hmm,
--save
mm-hmm.
express.
Yep. And npm, this is a little shortcut I didn't teach you guys yesterday, will install anything. It will install multiple packages at once if it's comma separated. So we can also throw in body parser here. And we're also going to throw in moment here. So we all have it installed at the beginning of the project for us. So it's going to go ahead and install that. And it popped in our dependencies. Awesome. Anything else that we need?
What was the dome? I don't know, I can't. Something,
Oh, the node mode.
Nodemon. Yep. So we can install Nodemon. Nodemon is a global package. So we are going, how do we install a global package?
Sudo.
Yep. And then,
NPM.
Install dash global.
or -G shortcut and Nodemon. Okay. We got Nodemon. What else do we need?
FS, whatever that was.
Yep. FS is going to be built in for us, so we don't need to install that. It's one of maybe 10 packages built into Node that we just don't need to install.
And moment.
Moment we got as part of Express. Okay. What's next? Mhm.
So you just move on to building your endpoints then?
So is our server set up?
No,
Okay. So how do we set up our server?
I'm thinking of, no.
So you gave us like the IP address. How do we get the IP address?
You need to do the requirements and stuff then.
There you go. All right. So we're going to create a new file called index.js, which I already had created, but it's empty. So what do we do?
Is this where you do the
Records.
/add?
It will be where we do the /add. First, we got to get the server running. So run with your requires.
Express equals let,
Oh, yeah.
no, const express equals
Required.
require, and then in parentheses.
Dot slash specify.
Someone was typing for me, so I was just
Oh,
letting them
yeah,
type.
gotta have it.
equals
So we're going to do a require.
And then double quotes express.
Okay. And Express is great, but what we really want of Express is a,
Express that
and to do that, we're going to,
equals express. Parentheses.
great.
Wait, what would you just call the file? The index.html.
So basically Express is giving you access to all the goodies that Express has. But in order to actually use Express, you need an instance of an Express or an Express app. Every package does this a little differently, and we'll see that with Sales and a couple other packages we'll use down the road. But basically, there's very little that you do on Express itself other than create the Express app, and then you do everything with the Express app in your code. Okay,
You have to do the const body parser.
sure, we can do that.
Equals require parentheses, quote, body hyphen parser, once inside of quotes.
Okay, what's next?
App.use.
You're cheating, no cheating.
I take
Would
this
you do the
note.
same thing for moment?
Moment will include when we need it.
Okay.
But it will be something, that's a fine thing to do. Yeah, let's do that. So moment equals require moment. I thought you just opened up my file from yesterday and we're reading right off it.
No, these are my notes.
Okay, so why do we need to do that? Why do we need to do body parser? Why do we need?
Because body,
Was it Jason?
Because of the JSON, right? So what are we doing?
Because it doesn't recognize body as like a.
Again,
Right. So we need to not only tell Express to pull in body parser, which is what we do here, but we have to tell Express to use body parser. So how do we do that?
Function.
I can cheat.
I can cheat too. I think it's app.use.
Yes.
Hey, okay. Oh, can you tell that this is not the text editor I usually use? Okay, app.use, and we're gonna say body parser.json. Okay, so we just told Express, hey, when you have a request coming in, try and parse out the body for us. Okay, what else do we need?
As far as packages go.
Server setup, I believe the step is.
Is the listen part of the server set?
Sure is. How do we get the server to listen?
You do app.listen
Okay,
and then tell it where to listen.
and we're gonna get a little fancy today. We're gonna do 8081 instead. I believe Cloud9 was fighting with us on 8080 a little bit, so we said, screw you, we're gonna use 8081 instead. All right, we're gonna tell it what IP address, and we're gonna say listen to any of them. We don't really care. And then a good step is to add the callback as well, right? So we know, hey, if there are any problems, we'll be able to see that in our node console. So we're gonna say console.log server is running. Okay. Did we set up our server yet? Okay, what's next?
We need to set it up to receive.
Yes. So we need to set up a endpoint on our server. So let's just do a very basic one. Let's just do app.get, and we'll do it at a slash. And what does every endpoint take in Express? Reqres. And how do we get data back to that? How do we send data?
Res dot.
And I know you guys are going to be shocked here, but we'll do a hello world. Ignore that. Okay, what's next?
You want to test it?
Let's test it. How do we start this file up?
Oh, was it like node index.js or something?
We're going to do, you could do node index.js. We're going to use nodemon here. I don't know if I can blow this up. Of course I can't. But we're going to do nodemon index.js. And we get our servers running super tiny down there. I'm sorry about that. And now we are going to see if it works. So we're going to get our IP address, which I don't know if I saved in my notes. I probably didn't. No, of course I didn't. So we are going to go to AWS. We're going to stop the screen share for 1 second, just in case I expose any sensitive information, although I probably have already done that. We're gonna go in here. wonder if that IP address changed on me. I will share this in Slack in 1 second, but we're going to see if it works first. Beautiful. Okay. Our new IP address is that with the 8081 at the end of it, and we're going to restart our Zoom screen share, or you guys yell at me. Okay. So if we go to that, we have hello world. Did we set up our server?
Yes.
We set up our server. We make it green. Well, guys, it is 6:46 and we have 3 things left to do. I think it's break time.
Okay.
We'll do a 10-minute break and be back here in 6:55-ish.
Quick question on you know how we did it, the other way we did it when we were doing it with Jeff was we would just open the HTML file.
Mhm.
Is there another way to get to the website?
Yeah,
Can
so
you do it that way?
down the road, we're instead of just opening the file, we're actually going to serve the file through Express. So instead of just going to, actually, we can do that now if you want to, because we did that yesterday. So instead of this app.getRes.send hello world, instead of send, we want to send
The index.html.
and index.html is a
File.
file.
I was like, where are you going with this?
And we
I
want
have
to
no idea either.
and we want to send index.html. So when we hit save on that and refresh, we get something not nice. Okay, so what did we do yesterday that was different with send file?
It's the dot has to change, right? The dot has to change to,
Didn't we make it public?
yeah,
Oh.
file names.
Durning.
Oh, Durning, sorry.
Oh, we all laughed.
Are you on index.html?
I'm on index.js. So what we're doing right now is we're telling our server to send the index.html file when we get the basic root, the root of the website. So when we refresh,
There it is.
Wow.
beautiful. Okay, now it's actually break time. Go, 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 go.
I'm getting an error. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we have planned out our API endpoints. We set up our basic front end. We built out our front end. We set up our server. Questions so far?
So we're looking at 8081. Is everything else the same that it was for 8080 yesterday? Did we use all of that and just put 8081? Or did the front part of that change also? The URL?
The URL changed as well.
It did, okay.
AWS doesn't like to give you an IP address that stays the same. So I had rebooted it a couple times earlier today to get the weird auto reboot not working thing figured out.
And that's what you call creating another instance? Is that what?
I restarted the
You just
instance.
restarted
Yes.
the instance?
Yes. Which will all be covered in Gus's lovely section on infrastructure and deployment. There are ways of getting IP addresses at AWS that will not change. I personally don't use AWS. We use Google Cloud Platform at work, but the concepts stay the same throughout them. The product names might be different. So at Google or at AWS, they call it an EC2 instance. At Google Cloud Platform, they call it a compute instance. So just slightly different names for the products.
Tell me what that instance number is now so I can type it in.
It is in Slack.
It is in Slack. I just looked in. Okay, let me look again. Oh, hold on, I'm in the wrong channel. That's why.
That will do it.
Got it.
Okay, so let's build some API endpoints, shall we? All right. So we're going to leave our app.get because I kind of like the fact that we're serving our HTML file, through our server. That's pretty cool, and that's a standard thing to do, right? To serve static files through your backend server. So what are we going to do?
Does the order matter? Do you have to do a senders? Well, I suppose you would send before you receive.
Sure, we can send before we receive. Let's app dot.
Put
Okay, what are we going to put?
your rec res.
Before we put our rec res?
Oh, send.
And now we're going to rec res. Okay. And what did we say we were going to be sending up in our rec res?
The message text and the name.
Okay, but what are we going to do with that?
We're gonna save it
Yep, where are we going to save it?
in an array.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to define our array up there. And how are we going to add it to the array? Sure are. And what are we going to push in?
The text, right?
Not just the text. We want to, yep. So how do we store multiple things in an array that are all related to each other?
No, with an object inside of an array.
With an object inside of an array. Okay, and what are our keys going to be in our object?
Well, it would be name and the message, right?
Yep, so name, and where are we going to get our name from?
Oh, from the name input.
Mm-hmm. And how do we access that input in Express? What did we do yesterday? Close. Not query. What are the three params? What's the second? Body. So we're gonna send it up through the body, right? Because it's a put request, so we're gonna throw it up there. And we're gonna just assume that the front end is sending us name. And we're gonna do the same thing, except we're gonna assume that it's gonna send us a message. And we're gonna do one more. And how are we gonna do that? We don't actually need moment on the back end. We will need it on the front. Oh. We need it on the front end, but we don't have Webpack set up. So we're gonna do it old school. So we don't actually need moment here, but we do need the date. And so there is a built-in function to JavaScript called date that will create the date for you. When you can use something native, most times it is better to use the native version of it as long as it doesn't require like 40 gazillion lines of code. So what we could do here is we could just say, hey, do a new moment. And that would work fine. And it would give us all the functionality of date and then some. But I know from experience that we don't need all the functionality of moment. We will down the road. And when we get there, we will use it. Okay. Send endpoint. What else do we need? Or is it done? Need a receive. Are we done with send though?
You need, you need to display it, right? Is it already being displayed somewhere?
Or would you send it to the text file? True.
These are all good points that you make.
Hold on.
So let me lead the witness a little bit here. Are we done sending?
Oh. No.
Do we need to send anything back?
Yes.
Okay, how do we send something back?
Press that send.
Okay, and what do we want to send back? We don't really have to send it back because they're sending the text up, so they already have it on the front end. So here, it's fine to do something like status. Okay. And the reason we do that is because otherwise the front end is going to say, hey, I sent this message. And it's going to make the put request. It's going to send up the name and the message, and everything's going to be up there. And we're going to be like, great. And then the server's going to be like, okay, I'm done. But the front end is going to be like, well, could you tell me you're done? Could you tell me? So it's important to send something back to the front end to say, great, we got it. We saved it. We're good there. We can leave this as is for now. We can come back to this. It might not hurt to come down here and do a console.log messages just so we see what's in our array and make sure that it's saving. Okay. What's next?
App.get.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do, yep, and then do receive.
And
Receive is spelled.
No, EV.
No.
Come on. RE. Someone else type it. You all have access to this. Someone else type it.
I'm in the wrong spot.
So, in case anyone is wondering why I pay $100 a year for my text editor, is it has spell check built into it. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to rec-res, and someone remind me what rec and res is. Yep, request and response. Okay, what do we want to do on our receive?
Wait, nope, line.
So is this
Not-
where we
not-
push it to the
We did that.
text file and display it? Or
The text file we'll do as the next step. We'll revisit that requirement.
You do a rack.
Would you still push?
So you're closest with rec, but what do we want to do with the rec? We don't have any incoming information. What we want to do is send the information. So I promise you, you are all overthinking this.
Are we sending the file
We are sending the messages.
and then the message?
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So it was, and when it was in yesterday's message, or in yesterday's lesson, it looked like this res.send status okay, and we send an object. Here we're doing the same thing. We're just sending an object. In this case, the object just happens to be defined up here.
So,
And you know, it probably wouldn't be bad form to say messages and send it in as a something like that. There's shorthand for doing that in ES6, but that might make it a little bit more clear. So we'll leave it as that for now.
so when you do a put,
Yep.
what is putting it like update? What is that creating?
A put is a create, a post is a update.
Okay. Because what's getting me somewhere, when you do a put, you're adding to the server.
Yep.
But we're doing requests.
We're getting the data sent into the server.
So is rec like the request object?
Yes, the request is the incoming request data. And the response, the res, is what we're going to send back to the request, right? The request comes in and it has some information in it. We handle it, and then we say, hey, respond to that request with this information.
When you say we, you're talking about the server.
The server.
Why is it? have
No,
to
it's
be-
all the monkeys in the computer that make servers work.
First time it's grammar.
Why does it have to be messages?
What we're going to do is we want to send it back as JSON. And when we get this back, we're going to want some way to access that data pretty easily. So we just make it clear that, hey, this is the messages we're sending back. Because as our API gets more advanced, we may be sending back other pieces of data or several pieces of data in the same endpoint.
Okay.
Okay. So our task was to build out the API endpoints. Did we build out the API endpoints?
No.
Node? No, just kidding.
Well, yeah.
What did we not build out? Other than writing to a file, which we will loop back to do. So there's one thing that's bothering me in all of this code. We don't know if it works. Right? We can't test this. It says server is running. It didn't crash, right? But the syntax is right, but we don't know if this is actually doing what we want. So what we could do as an intermediate step is go to Postman and send some data in with Postman and see what happens on the server. We could totally do that. But we just built out this beautiful front end. Don't we want to see if this works? So let's dive into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our index.html. And we're going to install Jquery. I had to think about that one. Sorry. Jquery is like Bootstrap, but for your front-end JavaScript. So so we're just gonna grab Jquery, and we're gonna go back to our HTML, and we're gonna throw that down at the bottom of our body. And we're gonna open a new script tag because I'm too lazy to include a .js file. Although we totally could, and it would be probably the better answer, but we're flying by the seat of our pants here. So, what do we do? Got our back end. Our back end's ready. It's waiting for us. It's like, come on, baby, send me some messages.
So npm install jQuery?
We put jQuery in by just putting the script source tag.
Oh,
So jQuery is actually already in there.
okay.
But thinking back to last week with Ryan, how did you talk to New York Times? Whoa. Oh, whoa. Hold on. Someone pasted something.
No, I just cut it by accident and I just did an undo, sorry.
We got two of them now. Hold on. And we need our script tag. Okay, script. All right, we're back. How did we talk to New York Times? We fetched. Does that seem like something we should do now?
Yeah.
Okay. But did you guys tie any fetching to a button?
No.
Okay, so we're gonna tie that fetch to a button, and we're gonna do that with jQuery. Down the road, you guys will learn React and learn more interactive ways of tying this all together. But for right now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put an ID on our send button called send button. And instead of doing all the vanilla JavaScript of document.get element by ID and all of that fun stuff, we're gonna cheat and we're gonna use jQuery. And so for jQuery, we use a $ as a selector, and we say, hey, $ means go activate jQuery. And in very CSS fashion, because it's an ID, we're going to use a $. And in there, we are going to say send button. And in our send button, we are going to say .click. And it's going to say, okay, well, what do you want to do on the click? And we're going to say, well, get that event and console.log hi. Okay. Now you might say, Max, how do you know .click? Well, if we go to the jQuery documentation and look for a click, there's a .click and there's some handler on it. Okay, so documentation is here, it's your friend, feel free to use it. All right, so we're in here. I'm gonna type hello world and I'm gonna hit send and let's try that again. Hello world and send and where's it going? Okay, well maybe let's look in our console. So we'll go into our console, blow that up. Hi, send. Well, my hi appeared in my console for a split second and it went away. So let's pay attention really close. Look up at my refresh button here. As soon as I hit send, you notice that flicked for just 1 second. The default behavior in the web browser for a web form is to actually refresh the page and send the data to itself. So what we want to do is tell the browser, no, don't do your default behavior, just hold it there. We will handle it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back in here and we are going to say EVT, what we passed in here. By the way, the reason why this is all purple is because someone has it selected. So it might be a little easier for you guys to read if you don't keep it selected. There's one other person, but that's okay. We're going to say event.prevent default. And that's a function that's built right into JavaScript that's going to say, hey, when that click event happens, just don't submit, don't refresh the page. So when we come back here and we refresh 1 time and we say hi and hi, and we hit send, actually, I believe that one I have it blown up. Refresh. And we're going to say hi, and send. And we got it. And we notice our console log is happening here. So we're like, cool. What we just did is we made some JavaScript happen when we hit our send button. Okay. So one more thing I want to do. One more thing I want to do before, there's another one, but we'll get to it. When we hit the send button, what do we want to happen?
We want it to go to the server
Both correct answers. There's one other thing we wanted to do.
and then go to the other person.
There's one more thing we want to do. Yes.
Is it displaying the name of the person who sent it?
So we want to make the message appear up here, right? We want to make it show up there. We want to clear the text form, right? When you hit the send button, it doesn't keep the message in there. We want to send it to the server, but when we send it to the server, we also have to tell it what we want to send to the server. And we need everyone else to get it. Okay. Let's start with the basics. In order to send it to the server, we need to know what we're sending to the server, right? So we are again going to use our handy dandy jQuery, and we're going to put some more IDs on here. So this ID, we're going to say ID equals message, and this ID we are going to say ID equals name. And we're going to drop down here and we are going to say $, quote, pound, name. And we're going to put that in a variable called name. And that is going to be name.val. And we're going to see if that works because I'm clearly super confident about that. And we're going to hit the save button and we're going to refresh over here and we're going to do a test and we're going to hit send. And would you look at that, test showed up. And we can change it to test 2 and we can hit send, and that didn't work because I console logged the name. So if we change this to test 222, we get test 222. Okay, so it did work. Confidence, baby. All right, so we're going to come back here and we're going to do the same thing for our message. We're going to say, hey, go get the message and then go get the value of the message. And while we're here, let's just make sure that's working. We can close that. We can refresh. We can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can send and we get our 4, 5, 6. So now we have access to our data in our form. Okay. So what are we going to do?
Send it to the server.
Send to the server. In order to send to the server, what do? We fetch it. All right. How do we fetch it?
Did we set up the server already?
Server's running.
We
Yeah.
need the URL.
Yep. Okay. So let's go get the URL. The URL is this lovely thing. Okay. So I have the URL. What's next?
Well, put in quotes.
Okay.
And then outside the quotes, put a comma. Then you need to give it.
Man, remembering this is really hard. How do developers remember all of this?
We use Google.
Oh, we use Google. Maybe we should go use Google. Using fetch, that looks kind of cool. Oh, it's our URL. Great. Let's see what else it has. Okay, so our URL and it takes a method. Okay, so let's add our method in there. So let's do a curly brace and let's say method. This is going to drive me insane unless we fix this. Okay, method, and what kind of method do we want?
Nope, now we want to put, yeah.
Okay, and what are we putting to?
The body.
Body's the data that we're putting in, so we can do that. So our body is going to be an object, and it is going to have the name of name and the message of message, right? Because we define them here, and now we're telling the server, hey, this name coming up is going to be this value. And this thing coming up called message is going to have the message in it. Okay. What else do we need? Where are we putting it? To the server, but we're just going to put it anywhere on the server?
No,
No, not
it
that. Oh, no.
has to go into the file.
Oh, the endpoint.
Send,
What's the endpoint?
send.
Send. So we want to put up in our URL, hey, when you go to our server, look for send. That's where we want to put this data. And how are we sending that data up there? What format are we sending that data up there? JSON. And so in order to send our JSON, that's just letting me down. We need to convert our data to JSON. So json.stringify. Okay. So we're going to send that up to the server. We're going to hope that all goes well up there. And how do we know it went well? And send it up to the server, and then what?
You want to get the status or the response.
You want to get the response. So we are going to .then, and now we're going to go back to our documentation because I don't remember any of this. And we're just going to copy and paste all of this right from the documentation. And we're going to fix indentation.
When you get it, you want a string, but when you send it, don't you want to parse?
So anytime you send something to the server, you should get a response as well.
Okay.
And so we're getting the response, and the response is going to come back as JSON.
Okay.
So what we are going to do is we're going to parse that JSON out, which is built into Fetch.
Okay.
And then we're going to have our JSON back, so we can just console.log my JSON. Okay. Did we do it?
Yes.
One way to find out. Let's save it and see what blew up. Okay, so we're gonna refresh. We're gonna say my name is Max. My message is hello world. Ready? Gonna break the internet right now. Ready? All right, send. Woo! Okay, so we got our status okay. We have our hi, which let's not forget to take that out of our console log. Okay, and let's look over here. So in our, I really wish I could blow that up. That's that font size. I want this font size bigger. All right, I'm just gonna copy and paste this up here so we can see it.
There's something that says, not defined, please don't fix.
So this is what showed up in the terminal, in our node console. Name undefined, message undefined, timestamp. All right, that timestamp looks good, right? Today is the 4th. It's in some weird format, but we'll worry about that later. So name is undefined and message is undefined. Okay, so let's look. We did send the body of name and message. And if we look in our index.js, we come down here and we have rec.body.name. So in theory, that should have worked, but something is undefined. So what my guess is that the server, the front end actually sent that data up, but because we didn't tell the server, hey, what we're sending up is JSON, Express got the data and was like, well, I know you told me to parse out JSON, but you didn't tell me that what the data coming in was actually JSON. So what we're going to do to try and fix that is we are going to say, we're going to go back to our fetch documentation. And what we're going to do is see down here, it says headers content type application JSON. What we're going to do is say, we're going to put that in our front end. And we're going to tell it, hey, when you send that data up to the server, don't only send the JSON, but tell it that what you're sending is actually JSON. And you're going to witness me being horribly wrong here because that's probably not the right solution, but we're going to try it. We're going to refresh. We're going to do max. We're going to do hello world. We're going to get excited because we see status okay. But when we go back to our Cloud9, ooh, we see that. Okay, now let's get a little fancy here. Let's go back without restarting the server, without doing anything, and saying, I'm sending another message, and I'm going to hit send. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to copy this whole array. And we do have our undefined from before, but we have our hello world message and our max message.
Brilliant.
But I'm getting a message when I do it on the, at the website.
So make sure that when you're trying to follow along.
Yeah, I just put my first name in and hello world.
Oh, you know what? You are loading it at a different URL. If you, let's do this. Let's see if this works. Okay, now try it. There's a security restriction because we didn't set up encryption.
Answer right now.
Yeah, hold on, let's do this. Okay, now try it. There you go. And if you notice, when you hit the send button, my console lit up because you sent a message to my server. Okay. We're sending messages. We're making progress. What do we got to do next?
Make sure, make it show up.
Make it show up is one thing. Clear the form is another. So in order to make it show up, what we're going to do is, what is a limitation of REST? So what did we just do, right? We said, okay, front end, I want to make an API call. Made the API call, sent up some message data. Some data came back from the server. Great. Now, what if someone else sends a message, right? Someone else sends a message, the server gets it and goes, all right, I want to send that to everyone else. How does the server send that to everyone else? Trick question. With REST, it can't. REST is always one way. The user always initiates the REST call. That REST call gets the data from the server goes, great, you asked for new messages, I can send you all those new messages, and it does, and then that's it. And if new messages come in, the server can't go tell everyone who's connected, hey, I have new messages. Seems like kind of a common thing that you would want to do though, isn't it? Well, that's just not the way most of the internet is built. Most of the internet is built with one-way calls. It's built of, hey, I want this web page, it goes and gets the web page is gone, and that's it. So we're going to use a workaround that is an interval, a timer, a timeout that's going to run every second, and it's going to go to the server and it's going to say, hey, do you have any new messages for me? Hey, do you have any new messages for me? Hey, do you have any new messages for me? And every time it finds a new message, it's going to display that message. Now, tomorrow, Alice is going to jump into sockets with you guys, which is two-way communication, right? How does the server say, oh, I have a new message, instead of you asking me every second, do you have new messages? Instead, I can tell you, because you have a constant connection with me, how we show that message. But for right now, we're going to do it on a second timer or a 5-second timer, where we say, hey, every second or every 5 seconds, go to the server and see if there are new messages. And whatever data you get back, let's display that information now. Sound good? Okay. So we're going to, we got our send working. That's great. So we're going to come down here and we're going to do a new thing called set interval. Set interval is a function built into JavaScript. It's not jQuery. It's not anything fancy. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, run this function every 5,000 seconds, 5,000 milliseconds, excuse me. Okay, and what do we want to do every 5 seconds? Well, we want to fetch from the server again. And instead of sending, we want to
Receive.
And what is that called?
EI.
That's still not right, is it? It just,
No,
it
that's-
just,
That's right.
oh, it is, okay. Okay. This is also called the endpoint, right? We're hitting the endpoint on our server. And what are we doing? We're not putting, we are, yep. And do we, do we have a body to send up?
No.
Okay. Do we have any headers? Do we have any information that we're sending up? So there's no format, it doesn't matter. So that wouldn't hurt, but we don't really need it, right? Okay. Is the data we're getting back JSON? Okay. And do we still need that JSON? Okay. So let's just save that. And we are going to go back to our chat room app and we're going to refresh this here. We're going to be patient. Nope. Got messages. Let's look at our messages. Ooh, we got an array of messages. Ooh, we got some timestamps in here. We have our names and we have our messages. Now what?
Don't we need to display them?
Let's display them. So we're going to go back to here. And how are we going to display them? Well, we're going to cheat and use jQuery. So we're going to go up here and, okay, someone keeps on cutting the code. Just copy. You can copy all you want, just don't cut. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our whole.
I didn't do anything. Hold on. I don't know why it keeps doing that.
Sorry. It might not be you. So we're going to take this and we're going to copy this whole thing.
It wasn't me.
weird.
I didn't touch anything.
And you guys are now all read only. Okay, let's see. Okay, so, and you know, I'm just going to close this just in case something is lingering on my side. Okay, so we're going to scroll up to here.
No, that's.
And it's a ghost. I hate this room so much.
We're doing so well too.
Well,
Yeah, you poltergeist.
I'm not going to redo all of this. Let me undo it. Has anyone been following along?
With the HTML?
With the HTML, yeah.
I think I copied it.
I copied it too.
All right.
I sent it to you.
Let me give you read and write access back.
Oh, no.
Go ahead and paste it in. Thank you.
Wait, it's all here. It's all here.
Oh, let me close it and then don't save and then.
did we just lose the internet connection? No.
Oh, it's, okay, it's here.
It's there, okay.
All right, okay. Little panic attack, but that's okay. All right. It's just me that it's disappearing on.
Could it be
Now it's
No.
disappeared.
the interval thing?
Oh. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. There's no way Cloud9 would have that vulnerability.
Oh, wait, wow, that is.
HTML is missing.
I refreshed and it all came back.
I just put it back in what I had.
Um,
Oh, I keep
It looks
doing
like
something I shouldn't be doing.
You see it's gone again, I didn't
Yeah.
touch anything.
something wrong.
And paste it again, and if it wants to fight, we can fight.
okay, let's just, we're gonna take a quick breather. We're gonna see.
Now it's asking me if I
Yeah,
wanna
it's saying it's
reload
changed
this.
this.
Yeah.
Maybe someone at home has fallen asleep on their key. Tell them to wake up.
This is missing the,
So I have this box, and it just keeps going. It says root came online.
Oh, mine
Just keep
disappeared
repeating
again.
itself. Root came online, root came online.
all right,
See, it says root again.
Yeah, I got the same thing.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Somebody's watching us.
It went from, yeah, let's do this.
There's too many of us in the US and there. You told us yesterday that they were gonna shut us down.
Who said that?
He did, remember?
No, no, I'm not.
He said, like, so many of us.
all right, well, it appears to be here, so let's just roll with it.
So just keep current version.
Yeah, refresh your whole Cloud9 instance. We were doing so well.
That's very interesting.
Could not open files.
You know.
Agent disconnected.
Just paste it again. Stay. It disappeared. Let's see.
Make me go old school.
Gonna paste it again. My hands are away from the keyboard. It's pasted.
Well, we can always switch it to Visual Studio Code. I just wanted to get a little bit further. I wanted to get the messages showing up.
In VS Code, what? Never mind, actually.
Well, I'm gonna keep going on my side, even if the collaboration aspect isn't working. And then we'll see where it goes, because we're close to getting the messages showing up, and that's really where I want to get us. And then I want to give us like 15-20 minutes at the end of class to make sure you guys are all caught up locally and make sure you have everything working. No real homework assignment for tonight, but the extra credit, the bonus would be getting everything that we have working here, working on your local computer. Okay. So I'm gonna just save and we're gonna roll with the punches here. All right, so we're gonna go to our receive endpoint. We're gonna get our JSON back. We're gonna console log it. We have it console logging. Now we want to get it to show up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up here and we're gonna copy our card. And we're gonna take that out and we're gonna take out our old card as well, our second card, I mean. And we are going to create a new div in here with an ID of message list. And we're gonna come down here, and what we're gonna do is we have our my JSON, right? And our my JSON has a bunch of messages in it. What do we want to do with those messages? We already parsed them right here. So we have like 5 of these messages. We want to display them, but in order to display one of them, we probably need to loop through them. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our handy dandy for loop, and we're going to say for const message of my JSON.messages console.log message. And we're going to take this out for now and save, and we're going to clear and refresh. And because I am impatient, we're going to drop that down to 1 second, and we are going to refresh. Why do I feel like it's not? It's me. It just hates me. That's it.
So glitchy.
Okay. All right. And what do we get here? We get our messages. And notice that these aren't in an array. They're console logging every second out. So there are a lot of them, and the list keeps growing. But these are all individual messages in here. Okay. So we now have access to them. Now we need to just format them. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell me I deleted our card. I did delete our card. Cloud9, you're killing me. All right, we're going to do it quickly on the fly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new string called content to update. And we're just going to make that a template literal. And in our template literal, we're just going to just do an h1 of hi. And we're going to just try and get that hi to show up. So without even looping through these messages, we are going to say, hey, go get the Jquery for the message list and set the HTML equal to the content to update. And then we are going to go back to our code, and we're going to refresh, and we have hi show up. Okay, that's what we want. So now let's handle, as we're looping through our messages, what we are going to do is we are going to say content to update plus equals. And what does it equal? It's going to equal a new template literal. And what is our template literal going to be? Does anyone happen to have that card that I lost before? Do you have the
HTML.
yeah, for the card?
Two divs.
The two divs
The div
and the,
class equals card.
Yeah.
Div class equals card body, div class row.
you want to paste that right into line 65?
Yes.
Oh, it is.
Oh, wait.
Or just Slack it to me if that's easier.
Am I doing it 65?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna Slack it to you, mine's being
okay.
done. Can I, how do you know what? How do you send code in Slack?
3 backticks.
Oh, this.
Yeah. And then 3 backticks at the very end.
That's handy to know.
Exactly. Oh, cool. Okay. Is that?
Yep, that's what I wanted. All right, so we're going to dump that in here. And it has all of our stuff in here. But if we save this and refresh this over here, and we try and save this and refresh this over here, what we are going to get is it's going to say, okay, content to update is equal to hi, and then go ahead and set that HTML and then go loop through all the messages. So we need to move this HTML, the content to update. We're just going to make this an empty string here. And then we're going to build out all of our HTML. And after it's done looping through all of it, then we want to set our HTML to the content to update. So when we refresh this, we get Caitlin, hello, Caitlin, hello, Caitlin, hello, right? Okay, well, what's the problem? We didn't actually put our data into our message, right? We just have it hard coded right now to Caitlin. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a $ and the curly braces. And what we're going to say is message.name. And then we're going to say in our p tag message.message. And in here, we are going to say message.timestamp. And when we refresh, undefined, that's fine. We were playing around. Ugly timestamps. Okay, we'll handle that in a second. But hello world, I'm sending another message, and there's Avis. So the cool thing about this is if someone would like to try and send a message, in 1 second, it should show up here. Someone sent a message without a first name, I'm guessing, and we got hey to show up.
That was me.
Okay, so it's working.
Cool, this is so fun and ugly.
It's Bootstrap, it's gorgeous. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so we just created an internet application. It's working on the server. It's sending messages back and forth. Couple issues with it, right? So like, if I'm like, you know what? I don't like any of your messages anymore. I can go back to my server and just kill it. Now my server isn't running anymore. And if we go back, we have failed to fetch. So if I turn it back on, notice what happens. All of our messages are gone because we don't have a database. Okay, so we have our app running. It's just saving things in our node object right now, our node array, right? And the main problem with that is we don't have object permanence, right? We don't have any notion of data persistence. So as soon as I reboot the server, we're going to lose it. And so the way to fix that would be a database. And if only you guys were about to spend 2 weeks on databases. So what I would like to do here is I want to clean up that timestamp a little bit. And then I think we're going to call it a night. And tomorrow we can dive into template engines. We can dive into saving text to a file. And we can dive into sockets and how do we make this app so every second it doesn't have to ask the server for new information. Okay, so let's clean up that timestamp a little bit. So I'm going to Google moment JS CDN. And we're going to get it up at the top here. And we're going to make sure to grab English, which should be E. No, of course, it's not EN. Is it US touch? Yeah, E. Moment. We're going to grab the one all the way down at the bottom there, which is the minified version. We don't need the specific location. So we're going to go back to our code. In addition to dropping in Jquery, we're also going to drop in a script source of that URL. And now down here, instead of just putting in our message.timestamp, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, take that timestamp and make it a moment object. And in that moment object, we want to format it. And how do we want to format it? Well, that's a great question. because I'm so amazing and have all of these formats memorized in my head completely, I'm just going to keep making things up until you think I have it all memorized, where I can go in here and come back to here, and I can say format with an L and an LTS, lowercase l and a capital LTS. Again, because I totally have those memorized. I'm going to refresh, and we have some pretty dates there. And we, by the way, Moment does have a lot of different formats that you can use here. So like if you just wanted the time to show up, say without the seconds, you could just do LT. So we can go back to our code here and just do LT if we wanted to. They also have some formats that would make more sense, like MMMM is the month written out. But if you just want the shortened abbreviated version of the month, you would do MMM. So different formats and different ways that you might want your data displayed. But if we go back here and refresh, we have just our time. So 7:57, the kind of amazing thing in all of this is, other than maybe a little bit of jQuery or Moment, we didn't really cover anything new today. Right? If you think about everything we did yesterday, yeah, we installed Express. Yes, we created an endpoint. But at the end of the day, we didn't really do anything new. This is just a practical application of Express, of sending some data up to the server and getting some data back. I think that's really cool, right? Like this is a real world application where you can go in and say, hey, we built a chat app. And yeah, we cheated and used Bootstrap and Jquery and all that stuff. But here's a dirty little secret. A lot of websites cheat, right? A lot of websites use Bootstrap. A lot of websites use Jquery. And that's okay. There's really nothing wrong with using Jquery. So I think we're going to stop here. I will leave 30 minutes at the end to kind of get this working on your own computers. The Cloud9 will be exactly as it is. I do need to go in and comment some of the code, which I promise I will do that tonight, instead of going home and just passing out. So I will comment out that code just so you guys can follow along it a little bit better, but it would be good to get this running locally. And then tomorrow we will make this a little bit more useful with sockets. We'll make this a little bit more useful with a templating engine. And we will save all of these conversations out to a text file. With that said, Thursday, I'm pretty sure is going to be a catch-up day. We are actually ahead of schedule for Node and covering those topics. So get together a list of any homework questions that you may have. Get together a list of things that you would just like to recover. Get together a list of things that might not be in the syllabus, but you would like to cover anyway, like mobile maybe. Just start brainstorming those things, because I'm going to come in on Thursday and say, what do you guys got for me? And we're just going to spend the whole session catching up. That is pending tomorrow's class, of course, seeing how far we get.
We can just send our questions to you in Slack, right?
Yeah, or just bring them in on Thursday.
I think it
Might not.
we need to go more with Jquery, just putting it out there.
Sure. Yep. Okay, I'm going to end the stream. If anyone has any questions on the live stream, feel free to send them in over Slack. Other than that, we will see you guys tomorrow on the live stream.